Recently in the offices we've received several calls on how to propagate the southern magnolia by seed. The southern magnolia is a large tree that is common to the southern states. It is native from North Carolina to Florida to Texas. It is very often used in the landscape, a popular tree in the landscape, and sometimes is overused. But it has many qualities that are very noteworthy of its presence in the landscape. One of the qualities that it has is it's relatively pest-free. It has large dark green evergreen leaves. It has large creamy colored, very fragrant flowers, which is probably the most noteworthy characteristic of the tree. And then in the fall it has these cones which produce rosy colored cones which split open and produce these revealing these bright red seeds. And it is these seeds that I think sparks the interest of the gardeners in the fall to try out their abilities of propagation. So what we wanted to do today is show you some of the tips, some of the basic steps to go about propagating these seeds. Like I said, in the fall when the seeds appear, it is time to collect them. And at this time what you need to do is separate the seed from the fleshy red pulp. Here's the seed without the fleshy red pulp on it. And you can do that by placing it into a bucket of hot or warm water for 24 to 48 hours. After it has soaked for that period of time, you can usually separate that pulp from the seed very easily and be ready to propagate them or store them. One of the things that you can also check for is by placing these seeds in the water, viable filled out seeds will sink to the bottom. If they were not properly pollinated and filled out, then they will float to the top along with the pulp. Okay, if you're going to do fall propagation or sowing the seeds in the fall, you can do it two ways. You can either sow them directly into the ground, into a well-prepared area that you have picked out ahead of time, or you can plant them or sow them into a pot or flats with a good well-drained soil medium. The general rule of thumb of planting seeds is to plant them at a depth of 2 to 3 times the diameter of the seed. This can easily be done just by placing them, poking them down in the soil and covering them up. After that, what you want to do is place them into a cold frame or set outside where they can receive that stratification period or cold period for 2 to 3 months at 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, if you place them outside in a cold frame, you don't have a controlled atmosphere, and so the temperatures fluctuate, and you may find that the seeds don't germinate very well in the spring. So you may have to carry them over into the next year and let them go through another stratification period where you might find better seedling germination. Another way to do it in a more controlled situation and more reliable situation is to take the seeds that you have cleaned up and prepared, and being careful not to let them dry out at any time because they tend to lose their viability if they are allowed to dry out, and placing them into a container. A plastic baggie works very well, and mixing them up with a moist medium like sphagnum peat moss. And then you can place these into the refrigerator and keep them in there for 2 to 3 months, again at about 40 degrees Fahrenheit. And then come next spring, after that 2 to 3 months period is up, you can take them out and do the same type of sowing as mentioned before. You can either place them directly into the ground, or you can place them into pots or flats of a good well-drained soil medium and let them grow from there. Generally it takes a temperature of about 70 degrees Fahrenheit for the plants to begin to germinate. And once they begin to germinate, they grow fairly quickly and put on nice growth, and you should have a nice plant within another year or two to plant out into the landscape.
We hope you've enjoyed this classic from the Oklahoma Gardening Vault. Remember, even though these tips and techniques are timeless, there's always something new to learn in the world of gardening. By subscribing to both Oklahoma Gardening and OK Gardening Classics, you'll have access to a wealth of gardening knowledge, both classic and contemporary.